In this lesson, we're going to have a look at how to draw straight line graphs using a table. First of all, we have a look at an equation, equation of a straight line. Y is equal to x plus 1, and we select x values over a certain range. Now usually we go from a minus value, -3, -2, up to 3. So we're going to use these x values all the way through for each of these examples, and then we'll find out the y value that matches it, plot it, and you've got your straight line. So here's your equation for your straight line. If we put -3 into your x value up here, then -3 plus 1, -3 plus 1 is -2. -2 into here, -2 plus 1 is -1, and so on. -1 plus 1 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1, and you can keep going through and just substituting in the x value here, working it out and finding out what y value is given. So here we go, 2 and 3 and 4. Now each of these values here, these are called pairs. I'll just put a circle around a few of them. These are called ordered pairs, and we can plot these on the xy axis to the right. So let's have a look at, first of all, labeling the axes correctly. We need to label this one as x and this one as y. On the x-axis we need to show the values -3 through to 3. So if we go, there's 1, 2, 3 squares. If we label this as -3, that's this point here, -2, -1, 0, and then 1, 2, 3. Now we could go on further, but we actually don't need those points. And on the y value, the y-axis, we can look, we've got to go from -2 up to 4. So if we go up in ones, this is positive, the positive side, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and down here we're going to -1, -2, -3 and -4, although we don't need to go right down to -4, because you'll notice that the biggest value that is negative is -2. Alright, so we're going to plot these points. Now we've had a little bit of practice plotting these, so I'll just change the color for our plots. This has got this first point is the plot for -3 in the x value and -2. There's our ordered pairs. So x always comes first. There's -3 and there's -2. So -3 goes down to here, and that goes across to -2. So where the lines cross, so you can see that goes to -3 x value, that goes to -2 y value. There's our first point. And we keep going. The next one is -2 and -1, -2 and -1, -1 and 0, 0 and 1, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, and 3 and 4. Now if you've done this correctly, all of these dots lie on a straight line. So we'll draw a line joining these dots as best we can with a ruler, and you should have an arrow on either end, and you should also label the line. In this case we've drawn the line y is equal to x plus 1. So that's the procedure. Let's do a couple of other ones. Now you can work ahead with your calculators here, because now that we know how to do these, I'm going to write in the values. As you can see, -3, that's -3 times x. So it happens to be -3 times -3. In this case, minus times a minus, so it's 3 3s are 9. -3 times -2 is a +6, and so on. So we'll write in all our values here. You can double check these with your calculator at any stage. In fact, you can work ahead in your own notes and then just double check with these notes to see that you're doing it correctly. So remember, we need to label our x-axis and our y-axis. Once again, we've got to go from -3. So we'll put in here -1, -2, -3. That's 1, 2, and 3. And going up the axis, we've got to go up to 9. All right, so if we're going to go up to 9, probably best if we make each one of these squares 2, because that would be 2, 4, 6, 8, and that would allow us to fit into 9. And we also go down to -9, so we'd have to go down -2, -4, -6, -8, and -10. Right, so we'll plot these points again. I'll use green colour to plot the points. So the first one is -3 and 9. So -3 and a y value of 9 is up here. -2 and 6. You'll still get your straight line if you've done it correctly. -1 and 3. 0 and 0. So it's going through the origin. And it's interesting to notice that there's no number after the -3x. That always indicates that it does go through the origin. That is where x and y crosses. So we've got y and -3, sorry, 1 and -3, 2 and -6, and 3 and -9. And you'll notice it lies in a perfectly straight line. So once again, we'll take our ruler, make sure to the best of our ability passes through the correct points. It's a little bit off because I've done it freehand, but yeah, I think you can see the idea. And we then need to label it, and we'll label this one y is equal to -3x. And one more example which has a fraction in the equation. So I'll just extend this up the page a little. There we go. And now we've got a fraction, but that really doesn't make any difference because all you've got to do is to be a little more careful with your calculator. And if you take half of -3, because that's half times -3, and then you subtract 2 from it with your calculator, you get -3.5. We'll write it in as a decimal, -3.5. And you check this out. Put these values of x in, times them by a half, subtract 2, and you should get the following numbers coming in here. This would be -3, -2.5. This is a nice easy one because 0 makes that 0, so it must be -2. That's a good check. And then we've got -1.5, and you'll notice that if you're doing this properly, you get a nice systematic drop as long as these numbers are going in equal intervals as well. So the last one is, second last one is -1 and -0.5. So we'll label our axes again, always x and y. We'll see, yep, we're going -3 to +3. So we'll have -1, -2 and -3, and 1 and 2 and 3 there. So let's work out our y-axis, and you'll notice that all the numbers are negative. We don't actually even have to write in positive values here, but we will go down here, -1, -2 and -3, and we really should label all our axes, so we'll put 1, 2 and 3 here. So now it's time to plot the points. So -3 x matches -3.5 y. So we go down to here because that's -3, so that's -3.5. Then we've got -2 and -3. There's -2 and -3. -1 and -2.5. You'll notice the line is working here, 0 and -2, 1 and -1.5, 2 and -1, 3 and -0.5 is in there. There are all our points, and I think you can see they do lie on a line. So now we've just got to make sure that we do this as accurately as we can. So let's draw in our line. There it is. We need to label it. Y is equal to half x minus 2. And there we go. That's how we plot our points, and that's how we draw straight lines using an equation and a table.